Hello, and welcome to Jason Cavness Experience. I'm your host, Jason Cavness. The Jason Cavness Experience is brought to you by Cavness HR. At Cavness HR, we deliver HR to companies with our HR platform to companies with 49 or fewer people. Get access to the HR platform and a dedicated HR business partner for your company for $200 per month, depending on the size of your company. Our guest today is Mr. Charles Hamm. Mr. Charles, you ready to be great today?
Yes, sir. I'm going to try to be.
Texas to the bone, Charles Hamm is a veteran Marine sergeant, a retired successful businessman and entrepreneur. He holds a BA degree from David Lipscomb University in classical Greek and Hebrew, and is a passionate student of ancient history. Charles is well known on LinkedIn for sharing his thoughts about life and lessons learned from 75 years of navigating the twists, turns, and ups and downs of life's often perilous roads we all travel. He and his wife, Kathy, have been married for 54 years, have 3 children and 7 grandchildren. They reside in Magnolia, Texas, where they're enjoying their golden years. Mr. Charles, thanks so much for being here. This is an honor and pleasure.
It's my pleasure, sir.
So Mr. Charles, first we want to talk a little bit about your Marine background. You served 3 years in the Marines back in the 60s, correct?
4 years.
4 years.
65 to 69. Yes, sir.
And the phrase is like always a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine, correct?
That's correct.
I know I know quite a few Marines, and like the pride and the camaraderie they have with just other Marines is indescribable.
It's a brotherhood. I don't care what your rank is. If you were in after me, you're my little brother, and if you were in before me, you're my big brother. It's just kind of the way we look at it, but it is a brotherhood, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
So you did a LinkedIn article a while ago, I think it's 2018, and basically talked about when your grandson asked you, Grandpa, were you a hero? I just thought your answer was like very deep, right? Because a lot of people don't realize, like, if you're in the military, like if you're not military, you expect us to talk about everything we did in the military, right? Because everyone's not a hero. We don't talk about what we did day to day, right? For example, I was visiting some relatives in Texas last year, and a good friend of mine was there, right? And they were telling, hey, tell us some Army stories. We talk about the beer drinking, fun times. Like, no, tell us the real stuff. Like, me and my friend looked at it like, no, we're not going to do that, right? We're not going to tell you what goes on, right? Because it's like almost like top secret stuff to people in the military.
Yes, sir. I think veterans in some ways are very much the same, and yet different individually, like everyone else. And my feeling has always been that, I was there, and that's what I usually tell people if they ask me. I say, yes, I was there.
Same here.
What do you say? I mean, where do you go? Where do you begin? What do they want me to say? And I've just found it to be difficult to talk about, and I have a profound reverence for people who didn't make it back and paid the ultimate price. And I never felt that my service could even compare to theirs. And I just don't like. I just don't care to talk about it beyond what we're saying right now. There were some funny things happened. I didn't mind telling about my ship ride across the Pacific, or, just different things. But I've come from a long line in my ancestry. My dad was in World War II, grandfather in World War One. I had an uncle in the Spanish-American War, and 2 grandpas that fought in the Civil War. One was for the Confederacy and one the Union. And I even, on both sides of my family, traced grandpas back to the American Revolution. I'm a son of the Revolution twice.
That's incredible.
So hams tend to go to war, I guess. And when it came my time to serve, I went down and signed up.
Yeah, I'm like you with that article you wrote about what your grandson asked you. A lot of people say we're heroes, but we're not comfortable being called heroes, right? Because we both know like true heroes, right? Like I know some people like Captain America stuff, right? And of course, we serve. We did our part right. We're not heroes, I think, right? So I think that's a very good LinkedIn article where you wrote a lot of veterans need to read. I was like, how to answer questions, especially from your grandson, right? Because he always looks up to you as a hero.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I've tried. I just didn't want to encourage that kind of an image. I was just a young kid that went off and, in my opinion, did his duty, and I tried to do it well, and ended up a sergeant, and I'm proud of that. I did my duty, and any other superlatives I don't accept. I'm careful when someone gives me a compliment. It's like I recently said about someone showing you respect. I mean, I'll kindly thank them, but I don't disagree with them. But words are losing their meaning. And if all hero means is that you served in the military, then how do you distinguish between people like we're talking about who genuinely sacrificed everything or acted above and beyond the call of duty? I feel like the word's losing its meaning by the way it's being used today. And that article you referenced was me trying to say that there has to be some superlative for people who did more than they were called on to do.
Exactly. And I know the latest thing, people will say, hey, thank you for your service. I've turned around now. When someone says thank you for your service, I'll say, and thank you for paying your taxes to pay my retirement pay, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So next, let's move on to your time at Lipscomb University, where you had a degree in classical Greek and Hebrew. I know you're like a big fan of ancient history.
Yes, sir.
So why those degrees versus like business or something else?
It goes back to when I was a child. I developed an interest for some reason. I loved history, and I remember at an early age reading the first 6 chapters of Genesis in the Bible, and I had just a natural curiosity for what was going on according to the biblical story, what was going on before the flood. And there's really not a whole lot of information. And by historical timelines, that puts us into an area that we call prehistory. And my fascination has always been the distant past. And my major in classical Greek and Hebrew at the time, I thought would prepare me in some way for a career in archaeology, because archaeology is a passion of mine. But I didn't pursue it for several reasons. Once I got into it, I found the archaeological community to just be hopelessly lost in their own box. And I always insist on my right to do my own thinking and to ask questions. And I realized that I would have to pursue this on my own to maintain any intellectual freedom to ask what I thought would be valid questions. And often the answer to my question would be pretty much, if you think that you're a moron, and they never would really answer the question. It's a very closed community, as a lot of the scientific disciplines are now. And so I just ended up going my own way and pursued my intellectual passions as just on my own, and self-educated myself by just reading innumerable books that I could get on the subjects. And It's been a great journey. I've enjoyed it.
So what was your favorite part of like the classical Greek, I want to say mythology, like classical Greek history? Like, was it like the Persian Wars, like how the democracy started there, or Plato, was something different that drew you to classical Greece?
Yeah, it was just an interesting time. There was, for a long time, they thought that the Greeks were really the first civilization until they realized that Egypt predated them, and then they started getting on beyond Egypt into Samaria and other places, and uh, it became obvious to me that they still hadn't figured all of this out, and I was uh, just interested in seeing what I could learn. But I was interested in the classics and in that time, but more I was more driven to learn the language at that time and to be able to read it, and had visions at the time of finding a tablet out in the desert somewhere and being able to read it. But it just my education, the biggest value that I found in my education is that when people find out what I majored in, they think I'm smart, and that'll serve you well until they figure out the truth. But
Yeah, you
it's
definitely
a
have a unique degree, I think. Yeah,
yeah,
and
it is.
like for me, like my two best classes I took in college, I took a philosophy class that I loved, and I took a class of Roman history that I loved. Right, just the Roman history stuff
Yes,
was just so fascinating to me. Right, and same with
yes,
you
sir.
with classical Greek. So here's a question for you: like all great civilizations, they fail. Right, the Egyptians fail, Sumerians fail, Greek fail, Roman fail. What do you
Right.
think? Why do you think all these great civilizations fail at the end? Is this just like their excess? They don't learn lessons, or what do you think that is?
I think a common thread is all government, as far back as you can go, any governmental body that's ever ruled over other people uh, invariably becomes corrupt. It's just the nature of the beast. And that, when you think of monarchies and emperors and all of the different types of governments on up into our day, they all have that one thing in common. And generally speaking, uh, living in those times as just a civilian, a person on the streets, life was not that good. And I think if history teaches us anything, that it's that when a government becomes all powerful, it never works out very well for the people. And I think what we're seeing today in the world, uh, it's we're all just people, whether we were Romans that lived 2,000 years ago, or people are people, and there's something inherently corrupting about government, and there's something that inherently attracts people who seek power over other people for often nefarious reasons. And that's sort of the way that sums up my political views pretty well, no matter what time we might be talking about.
Yeah, I know my Roman history class, the professor did like he was able to correlate a timeline between us and U.S. history, and like he was able to trace like when the Roman Empire started falling, they started giving like free grain to everyone, like all that kind of stuff. And he did a
Yes.
timeline where like it was pretty accurate up to that part where like he predicted, I'm making this up, maybe like by the year 2090, the U.S. become like a dictatorship like Roman did, just because all the correlations like pretty much point on point.
I think that is inevitable when they realize that they can take money from the people and give it to other people, which all governments seem to uh, come to realize that. Then corruption races toward an inevitable result. I think the only another constant I believe in the relationship of people with governments is that ultimately, just by sheer numbers, the people really have the power. And I have a saying that no one can take your freedom from you. You have to surrender it. And if you live as a free man, perhaps you might have to die as a free man, but no one can really take your freedom from you. And I think that's a lesson for what we're seeing going on today in our country. We have 330 or 40 million people in the country, and a small handful govern over us. And the reason we have the power within us if we all get together and get on the same page and demand that things change. It's really in our hands.
So, Mr. Charles, what's your opinion on this? So, nowadays we have all this tech, Teslas, cell phones. We're sending people to Mars, maybe other stuff going on. But I'm a believer that human nature has not changed like a million years, right? Or however long man's been on the earth. That human nature is human nature, right? What's your opinion on that?
I think it's exactly right. We're still people. What I see happening in our day specifically with the advancement of technology is that we're losing touch with ourselves. There's so many distractions that we all glom onto and make center in our lives that no one, and you hear this a lot. I don't claim to be original, but I mean, people don't talk to each other anymore. Families don't sit at the dinner table and have conversation. The TV's on, or the kids have the phone. Maybe dad and mom have their phones out. And there's, I think the greatest need that people have today is to just find from time to time a quiet place where they can sit and maybe out in nature where they can be alone with themselves and their thoughts and just think about things, as I call it, pondering on things. I've always been someone essentially like that. I'm not a reclusive loner by any means. I enjoy good company and good conversation, but I don't mind being alone. And I cherish those times to just have a time to sort things out and think about things in my own life, maybe that I should or shouldn't do. But sometimes it's just a matter of self-reflection about the kind of person that I am and what maybe I could do to be a better person. One of the comments that I'm getting about my book is along this very line. People are they read it and it's like they've had a life-changing experience, and realizing that they need to get in touch with themselves, and for things to get better, we have to get better. And that was the main message that I've been trying to convey through all my writings is that this begins with us. If you think your problem is them or it or that's not it. You need to look at yourself first, and things tend to get better.
Miss Charles, that's some great advice. I think we've forgotten how valuable it is just to go out in nature, turn everything off, be outside somewhere for 30
Yes,
minutes, and just let your mind take over, right? Because so many ideas come
yes,
in, so much creativity, and you just
right,
have conversation with yourself, right? I think we don't do
right.
that enough.
That's true. Uh, for years, I've gone off in the fall of the year for 9 days, all 2 weekends and 1 week on a vacation, and I always went alone. And I would spend daylight till dark sitting in the woods by myself, just quiet and looking around and thinking and getting distracted by things that we need to be distracted by once in a while. A fox running across in front of me, or seeing a bobcat, or a coyote, or deer coming by. But basically, it was just a time to kind of evaluate things, and when I came back from those trips, I always just felt a lot better. It was very helpful to me, and I think people are missing that. I think we've lost our touch with nature. We've lost touch with the night sky. Lost touch with being able to grow food. Some of the things that were once very common, we've lost all of that now, and have embraced technology and the bells and whistles that essentially just keep us distracted.
Yeah, I went elk hunting last year for the first time ever with a friend of mine. And just being out in nature, like you said, by yourself, like, whoa, like I missed this. Like, you see the stars, you hear
Oh
all the
yeah,
sounds, like
yeah,
it's a great
yeah,
experience.
yeah. Even just hearing a red-headed woodpecker, you'll sit there and smile. All sorts of things go on in the woods, and
Of course, when you
we've
hear
lost our appreciation.
of course, when you hear a growl, you're okay. This might be the best place to be in. How close is that growl?
Yeah, yeah. But critters are predictable. They want you to leave them alone, and and when I'm out in the woods, I try to cultivate in my mind that I belong here too. I'm a part of nature, and I have a place here, and so I don't want the critters telling me that I don't. I have a right to be there too, and to get along.
So, Mr. Charles, let's go back to ancient Greece for ancient history. Ancient history. From your
Mhm.
point of view, what are some lessons we can still learn today from ancient history?
Well, I think there's a world of wisdom in just knowing the past, beginning with our own personal history. But the farther you go back, you get a perspective on how things were then and how things really haven't changed that much. But a fascination that I've had is, and I wrote an article about this on LinkedIn. I didn't uh, include it in the book, but the big lesson to me that seems obvious is that our historical timeline is wrong. We Intelligent people lived a lot longer ago than we think they did, and this became obvious to me at an early age, uh, just looking at the pyramids. Uh, we're told that the pyramids were created about 4,500 years ago, and yet that's Egyptologists talking, and yet archaeologists and geologists and other people will tell us, anthropologists, that at that time, people didn't even have a wheel, and they weren't. They didn't possess the necessary tools that would have enabled them to construct these unbelievable monuments. And I think that everything that exists presupposes or stands as evidence of something capable of bringing it into existence. And I think our historical timelines are wrong. And a lot of the scientific theory that has governed our understanding of ancient times has been was set forth by people who lived 200 or 250 years ago, and their theories were questioned then, sometimes by themselves, but academia for some reason wanted to go along with them, and everything just seems skewed. But it's been more a curiosity as much as anything, and just a personal interest. And I think that there's great wisdom in learning and reading about those times, and how it affects your perspective on things. It gives you some interesting things to talk about with people who have mutual interests.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great mystery. Like, how were the pyramids built? Like, because like I said, they supposedly didn't have the tools. Of course, some people will tell you, oh, an alien race came from outer space, built the pyramids, and they left, right? Stuff like that. So just have a great conversation starter. I think, like, how were they built? How was this done? Or was
right.
this, or just like 100,000 men doing, slave labor that did it?
There's still certain realities, and the number of people don't answer the question. If I wanted to know how the pyramids were built, I would go get some professionals in construction and get them out there talking about this, and go to the guys that move heavy stuff. There's companies that just specialize in moving unimaginably heavy and large objects, and see what they have to say.
That would be interesting for sure.
Yeah, and the explanations that were given are just unbelievable to me. And when I said so, I realized that I was going to have to conform to the indoctrination, or else would be left on the outside. And so I just chose to go out the door and leave them behind, and go my own way. And I've had a lot of fun with it.
Mr. Charles, next, can you talk some about your experiences and your time at, I think it's called Lone Star Locating?
Yes, sir. I've had a couple of companies, locating companies, Lightspeed Locating and Lone Star Locating. And maybe it was the archaeologist in me, but it's a long story. But I got interested in locating things in the ground, and I started my own company and bought the equipment that you would use, and we worked for people that needed to know what was buried in the ground. Surveyors, construction people, architects, did a lot of work in the oil fields, locating pipelines and that sort of thing, and got into hydro excavation, which is where you just blow holes in the ground with water pressure to expose a line. If they wanted, I could only tell them what it was. If they wanted to know what size it was, or precisely what the line was, all I could really tell them was that there's something down there. And so that gave us another ability, and it turned into a nice business. And I just retired from it in 90 when I was 74, a couple of years ago. It will be 2 years in July, and I was I stayed in the field and let other people take care of the office stuff. I wanted to be out with the guys. And so I worked hard until I was 74. And I realized that I'd maybe lost a step or two and it was time to do something else. So I retired and my kids are running the businesses now. And
So the company's still in business. It's like a family business
oh,
now.
oh yeah, it's a family business, and both are still in business and doing well. And I just come around once in a while and give my 2 cents worth about what I think about something, and that's about the extent of my involvement. I go out in the field once in a while to see the guys. That's always a lot of fun to just show up on a job site. But,
Mr. Charles, can you talk some about why you decided entrepreneur, like why entrepreneurship versus working for someone else, and any lessons learned and any advice you can pass on to people who are like doing the entrepreneurship thing right now?
well, most people work for someone else, and I decided that early on. I've had several businesses besides the locating business. I've tried some things and either failed or moved on to something else. And but you have to have an idea, and I think what most people lack is just the maybe courage isn't the right word. It's the one that comes to mind, but it takes a certain level of courage and self-confidence to put yourself out there and try to start a new business. On day one, no one knows you're in business, and yet there you are, and so you have to become known, and that's a process that you have to go through, and sometimes you might go for a couple of years before you're even making enough to pay the bills. But the reward of it is it's not unlike working for someone else, because you do work for someone else. If a company gave me a job, they immediately became my boss, and they were paying me just like other people get paid from their company. And if you don't do a good job, they'll find someone else that will. But it's you have a sense of being in control of your own destiny. The harder you work, the better things will get usually. If you provide good service to your customers, they'll call you again, and there's a lot of reward in it. And to me, the most wonderful thing about it was when I hired my first man and realized I had created a job, and that was a very meaningful thing to me. That something that I had done had benefited me, and now I needed some help. And here's a man with a wife and family, and I was able to give him a job. And that meant a lot to me. The creation of jobs was one of the most rewarding things about being an entrepreneur to me.
Yes, Mr. Charles. I think a lot of entrepreneurs or people in business don't realize the significance of that. Like when you hire someone, you're gonna take care of him or her and their family, right? We'd often forget that that family depends on that person's job, right? I think we sometimes forget that, like you're hiring a family. By you hiring the person, they can take care of their family, maybe buy a house, pay for college, right? I think a lot of people don't get that point.
No, it's really true. And I'd tell my guys that it's the job that's sacred, not the individual that has it. If you have this job, you need to be thankful for the job and do a good job, or it's a betrayal of trust, as if I worked you out here and didn't pay you what I said I was going to. We're entering into a deal, and staying out in the field with the guys, we became just like family. A lot of fun, guy banter, and you know, it was just a great time, and we were like a family. But I was the father. Now I was a father with older kids, and they called me Mr. C, Mr. Charlie. A couple of them called me Pops. You know, I mean, a lot of easiness and lightheartedness. But I was the father, and they recognized that. And if decisions need to be made, I respected their expertise too. They were good at their work, so we'd stand in a circle and talk about it. And one would think this, one would think that, I'd think this, and we'd hash it out. And ultimately, I was the one that had to make the decision because we had to do something. So that's the way it kind of worked, and it was a fun. I loved working. I loved being out there, but I felt like it was time to let it go. I took a couple of hard falls the last 6 months or so before I retired, and just bounced right back up, and everybody running around. You okay? Okay. I mean, I was fine, but it started weighing on me a little bit, you know, that one of these days I'm going to fall out here and I'm not going to be okay. And I thought it was just time to let it go and turn it over to the others.
Mr. Charles, you bring up a great point. I know a lot of people that start a company. I'm going to start a company so I don't have a boss. Like, really? You're not going to have no boss. Like, your customers will be your boss. Your employees will be your boss. You'll have like literally tens and maybe hundreds of bosses, right? You have to answer to versus just one boss in the past. People don't get that.
Absolutely. And you get paid last.
A lot less.
Yeah. Or last. I mean, you know, you have to pay the guys first. You have to pay the bills. If you need new equipment, you need to get it. And for the business owner, it takes a while before you can really start making any money. You have to put the company first and the best interest of the company. And then second, the employees. Some people squirm when I say that, but if you don't put the company first, there's no jobs for the employees.
Exactly.
So the business and the success of the business has to be foremost in your mind. And then you have to take care of the wonderful people you have that you brought on to help you. That's the way I look at it. And
I think another important detail people forget too is like you have to have the support of your spouse, right? I mean, your spouse has supposed to be behind. Like, if your spouse is used to getting like a steak dinner every day, and you say, "Hey, Mama, we're gonna eat steak once a week now because of business," and she's like, "I don't know about that. I'm used to getting steak 5 days a week, right? You can rethink this, right? It might not be for you."
Right. Yeah. It's a struggle at times, and some people have this idea that security is found in having a good position with another company and gathering in there, but nothing ultimately guarantees your security. You can be terminated in a downsizing operation from an excellent job.
No such thing as a secure job anymore.
No, and it's the same way with you if you own your own company. If you start losing business for whatever reason, you're essentially being downsized by your customers. So it's just, you know, I encourage people to go into business for themselves if they have an idea, and I'll tell them a little bit about my experiences and what to expect. And it's a major decision and one that needs to be made wisely, and a lot of things are to be taken into consideration.
Mr. Charles, next we're going to go into something a little personal. So there's a picture online of you and your grandkids titled "Me and the Cookie Bandits." Can you
Yes, sir.
Can you talk some about how having grandkids has maybe changed your life, any perspective on things?
Well, it's uh, grandpas will sit around and talk to each other sometimes, and we all say the same thing. There's just something different about the grandkids as opposed to your own children. It's not that you love them more, it's just different. And all of a sudden, my kids are all grown, and then they start getting married, and the next thing you know, I've got little people running around in the house again, and they're just a joy, and I think there is something inherent in children. They like older people. I believe that to be true, and so there just seems to be a natural bonding with them, and it's the joy of your later years to have them and see them grow up. My oldest will graduate from high school in May, and it just seems like yesterday. She was the only one, and I had her in my lap. They grow up so fast, but I still call them cookie bandits, and they get a kick out of it.
So two funny things I remember seeing, difference between a parent and grandparent. If you're a parent, eating breakfast, your kid, hey, can I have some jelly on my bread? No sweets at breakfast.
Yeah.
If you're a grandparent, you're making chocolate cake and donuts and sugar cookies for breakfast, right?
Well, yeah.
And then, if you're a parent, don't play in the living room. Sit down and watch TV. You're a grandparent, you build like a living room for it, Dungeons and Dragon things from the play, this.
They you're just easy on them, and that's I learned a long time ago when they were young that the best way to get along with them was to never tell them no, and let mom and dad take care of that. And I told my kids, I said, if they're out with me, they want a Snickers, they get it. I mean, that's going to be it. And they'll come over to the house, and I'll get them all sugared up. Let them. I even will tell them this is something they think is funny now, even then. But I would tell them there will be no supper until you finish your candy. And I'd say it very firmly, that you're not going to get supper until you finish your candy. And they thought that was funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and then mom and dad comes and gets them, and they're bouncing off the walls all the way home. And after they get there, and I just kind of sit back and laugh. I feel like they had it coming.
Yeah, I remember having very fond memories of my grandparents. Like you said, feeding me Starburst and orange soda and cake. I'm sure I ate real food, but my memories are walking to the store with my grandmother, getting an orange soda, some candy.
Oh, it's just the way it is. You just kind of go along with them and enjoy having them there. That's it's a great thing. And I've taken them fishing and done things with them, and we stop at the store out there, and I'll let them, whatever they want to eat, that's what they get, and it's a lot of fun. My kids my children get irritated with me sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
That doesn't mean a thing to me. I couldn't care less.
Your kids were like, where was this person at when I was growing up?
Yeah, well, I hear that, but that's the way it is.
So, Mr. Charles, next, you wrote another article. It was titled, "What the Heck is the Second Law of Thermodynamics?" And you talked about, Age of Reason with Thomas Paine, Origin of Species with Charles Darwin, and Darwin's Doubt. very deep philosophical piece that you did. Can you talk? I mean, can't talk details for enough time. We talk like 20 hours on this, but can you talk about why you wrote that article and what do you want people to get out of it?
Well, it goes back to something that we were talking about earlier. The second law of thermodynamics is something, if there's one thing you can get academia to agree on, no matter what discipline they're in, everybody has bought into the second law of thermodynamics, which is essentially that things start out on a certain level and entropy. In other words, it starts deteriorating. Things go from good to bad. And that can be illustrated in just hundreds of ways. And no one argues with that. And I included the cartoon of the kids talking to their mother about their rooms. And they said, you know, the second law of thermodynamics applies to our rooms too. It's going from order to disorder. This is a natural law. But here is the significance of it, which I think people have missed. It's a total variance to Darwin's theory of evolution, which says that everything started out in its absolutely most primitive form, and that over time, things just become more complex, more sophisticated, and it's going. Everything is just getting better and better and better when it comes to life. And I brought that into question and have talked with other people about it too. And it's kind of a shocking thing to them because they haven't really thought about it. And Darwin recognized that his theory was flawed by what was called the Cambrian explosion. But people at that time, if you understand the intellectual climate, they were looking for an alternative to creationism. That was really what it was all about, and they came up with this. And all I was pointing out is that we should have expected things to have started at its highest level of development, and we would be in the process of moving back to the monkeys and not in the process of having moved on from them, so to speak. And that was essentially, and it also has to do with the historical timeline and why it's so difficult for people to understand things that are right before their eyes. And that is, the more primitive you are, the longer ago you lived, the more primitive you are than people are today. And so you would have had less intelligence, less ability. And yet we've gone back so far in history, and we're seeing these magnificent monuments that can't be explained except by having been constructed with skillful people with tools and abilities that we don't give them credit for having. And that was sort of my point to that everybody, again, it goes back to something I say, it seems like many times a day. People need to stop and think about what they're saying, and does it even make any sense? But what started happening, and it's in full bloom in our day, is that if you disagree with the established view, then you're ridiculed and mocked, but no one ever really offers an explanation or an answer to a legitimate question that you might have asked. You're just there's a lot of ridicule that goes along with that. But that was my point, that if you happen to be someone who is a creationist, and when you say that word, it immediately, people associate it with the Bible, but all of the ancient pantheons that from people all over the world that had hundreds and maybe even thousands of gods, the main god was always the creator. They all believed that one of them had to be responsible for what's here. And I was just trying to make that argument that a good argument could be made that brings into question Darwinism. The whole idea, we've learned so much since he set forth that theory, and yet we hold on to it as if we haven't. And that's been my issue with them. And in the article, I just pointed out what I thought. And the critters up on Round Mountain all agreed with me, so that was enough for me.
Yes. You make a great point. There's so many people nowadays who are like, what do you believe in any subject? I believe this. Well, why? Because my friends believe that. Well, why do your friends believe that? I don't know. That's what they say, right? Like, no research, like you said, think on your own, like learn different things, learn different ideas, right? Versus just, my friends say this, or, just like do your own research, so to speak, right? Like get your own ideas.
Sure. And science I have the deepest respect for science, but it's about questioning. It's about taking issue with someone and making them defend it and present their evidence. Yes. That's what it's all about.
You're supposed to do, you're supposed to question science, and it's supposed to be peer reviewed. And supposed to ask questions, why this, why that, how you do your research.
Right. Yeah. And that's not being done anymore. I love the astronomers more than anybody in all of the disciplines. I watch this show called How the Universe Works, and I sit there, and it's very amusing to me because they don't have any idea how the universe works.
No,
and they have all of these theories, and it's so massive. And astronomers have this glow on their face, almost like young lovers. And while they're talking, they've got this little grin, and they're just in awe of what they're talking about. But quite often you'll hear one of them say, after they've told us all about it, is, we don't have the slightest idea whether this is true or not. And I respect them for that, because the universe has a lot of questions to be answered, and we know so little about it. And I appreciate their attitude. They can still concede they don't know everything.
Yeah, like we have more access to information anytime in the world, right? Just on our cell phone, access to all the information in the world. But of course, it seems like the more information we have, the less we know about anything.
Yes. You can know a lot and not understand anything. And I've always tried to take my knowledge to a level of understanding, and have been always resistant to indoctrination. And that was true in my upbringing in the church. I felt like I had a right to read and come to my own conclusions. And I had a preacher tell me one time that was getting upset with me because of some of my questions. They're very dogmatic people in a lot of ways. And he insinuated that if I believed that, I wasn't going to make it. And I said, well, if I'm going to go to hell for a doctrinal error, it's going to be my error and not yours. And at least exactly. I can stand before the judgment bar of God. And if he brings this up, I'm like, well, that's what I thought, it wasn't what somebody told me. I genuinely believe that. And maybe he'll give me a break. I'm thinking he will.
Well, this like I think it was in Arizona or somewhere in the United States, for this Catholic priest, when he was baptizing people, he used the wrong wording. So now the Catholic Church is saying all these people are not saved, and they have to redo the ceremonies, do everything, or else they're going to hell. Like, is God really going to send someone to hell because a man mispronounced one word? I don't know, right?
Well, it's not the way I look at it. When you read the biblical scriptures, the Hebrew scriptures, again, I've always looked for the message, and what are they saying here? And we tend to get lost in the weeds, and that's where we get into things that divide us. But fundamentally, the message of the scriptures is rather simple, and anyone could read through it and get the gist of what's being said, and that's what's important. And to base a belief on some nuance of a Greek preposition, I think if you have to go there, you're probably missing the point anyway. It's just been the way I've looked at it.
Yeah, this comedian, he does a skit. He's talking about the messenger. He like, some people say Jesus is a messenger, some people say somebody else or someone else. My question is, did you get the message right? Like you said, the
Yes.
message is more important than the person doing it, giving it.
And we have this tendency to want to be the judge of these things, and I don't stand in judgment of anybody for anything, and that's not. I haven't always been that way, but I've come there. I have. I don't feel like it's way beyond my pay grade to pronounce eternal judgment on someone. I think I can disagree with them about something, and there is right and wrong. I'm not trying to say there isn't, but I think the Bible teaches us to be, that there's a gracious, merciful God, that's our Heavenly Father, and I'm staking everything on that, that He'll give me a break.
Suppose me and you we're negotiating over 10 things, right? And for whatever reason, you agree to 9 of my demands, right? For the 10th one, you said, I want this. A lot of people are like, well, if I can get 10, I don't want nothing, right? It's like that one thing really that important to pass on 9 things. So many people pass on getting the 9 things they want versus the one thing that is it really that important? Maybe it is, but probably not right. And I just think that's mindset. A lot of people are wrong around all those things.
Right. And we focus on the things that we disagree on and not on the things that we agree. And that's why there's so many different denominations. I kind of chuckle about it. You go through small towns in Texas, and there'll be a First Baptist church. There'll be a Second Baptist church. And the Second Baptist church are the folks that split off from the First Baptist because they got mad at them about something. And then maybe there's a Third Baptist church. I've seen towns with 3 Baptist churches. And I'm not saying anything bad about the Baptists at all. I don't mean to imply that. But people have different ways of looking at things. And rather than work them out, we tend to segregate ourselves from those people. And I think that's a shame.
So, Mr. Charles, let's go to LinkedIn real fast. So when did you start posting on LinkedIn? And then when did you realize, wait a minute, people actually listen to what I'm saying. People actually follow me and taking my advice. When did that hit you?
It was a process. I wrote an article 4 or 5 years ago. And up until that time, I'd just been trying to find my way on LinkedIn. And I realized early on that no one pays any attention to you if they don't know you. You have to do something to draw attention to yourself. And I wrote an article entitled "Who's the worst? Who's the world's worst boss?" And then I put this kind of a subtitle: "Evidently, it's me." And it was kind of I talked about all the things that people say about in today's venue on leadership and these sorts of things, about how you deal with people and all of the different things that you should do in business. And I took issue with most of it and explained why, but kept myself in the context of being a horrible boss. And down at the end of it, I concluded the whole thing with, that I was a bad man. And that article got about 104,000 views, and the comments were just endless, and a lot of them just disagreed with me, but a lot of them did agree with what I was saying. And it was just a lot of fun, and it got me noticed. And I'm an observer of life. I don't talk a lot about current events, but I'm an observer of them. And I started trying to write about things that I thought people were troubled about, and just give them a different perspective. I started seeing so many angry people out there. Everybody just seemed to be in a rage. And I wrote some things about anger. And it seemed that it started resonating, and I realized I was developing a following of these wonderful people from all walks of life were saying the nicest things about what I was writing and about me. And it encouraged me to think of something else to write, that might be helpful or make them stop and think about things. And it has grown. The last two articles that I've written on LinkedIn, one had about 235,000 views, and the last one went to about 248 or 9,000 views. In two articles, it was close to 500,000 people saw that article. And it gives you it's humbling. You feel a sense of responsibility. I mean, people are listening to you, and I feel that I need to have something to say. But then people started asking me to write a book, and eventually one particular man just wouldn't take no for an answer, and put me in. Got a publisher to contact me, and it was Miss Hillary Jastrom, and the rest is history. Now the thing is, the Kindle version's up and doing well, and the paperback will be out shortly. So LinkedIn's been very good to me. I've had a lot of fun going on there, and the nice people and following, and yet here comes a book out of it. And the last thing in the world I ever thought about was writing a book. I wrote one years and years ago, and I'm the only person that ever read it. So I like to write, but this one went a little farther.
Mr. Charles, is LinkedIn the only social media that you post on?
LinkedIn has been the only social media that I've been on until Monday. A good friend of mine, a man that I've known for 40 years and who probably knows me better than anybody in this world. I mean, he knows me, and just a wonderful man. And he sent me a text and he said, I wrote something about your book on Facebook. And I had set up a Facebook account years ago, but never did anything with it. And so I start trying to find him on Facebook so I can see what he wrote. And it kind of hit me that a lot of people that I actually know are on Facebook. And I started looking around and I started seeing people that I haven't seen in 20 years. And, and I started making contact with them. So short answer to your question, or to come to the point, I have started working Facebook a little bit now. And if you're out there and you're listening and you want to befriend me on Facebook, I'll be glad to have you.
So, Mr. Charles, do you like post like on a regular basis, like once a week, twice a week? What's your process for that? And second question, do you have like a set of topics you talk about, or they just come to your head? And with all these followers and content engagement, you like sometimes feel pressure to put something out there when maybe you're not ready to put something out there?
I never feel that way, and I don't have any timetable. Writing is something that the best way for me to describe it is that it comes from my heart. There has to be something well up inside me that I think needs to be said, and it usually I'll have ideas and I'll write things down. This would make a good article. This would be there, and I'll be sitting there thumbing through those things, and none of them are really hitting me. And then a thought that I'd never had before will occur to me, and I'll start writing about it and post it on LinkedIn. And they run their course, but I probably post something once a week. But if I don't concern myself about it. But if it's been 4 or 5 days and I have another thought that I really want to say, I might go ahead and do another one. But it all comes. It's driven by a feeling that I think I have something that needs to be said, and that's really the long and the short of it.
Mr. Charles, do you ever do any videos, or you just strictly do writing?
I have done 2 or 3 videos on LinkedIn. And the first one was a spoof. Everybody was doing videos and pontificating about this, that, and the other. And I got one of my guys out. We were out in the field, and I said, I want to do a video for LinkedIn. And so I said, I want you to run the camera for about 20 seconds. Just put it on me. And so he did. And I never said a word. It was a spoof on all of these. Maybe I was a little unkind, but I thought I got a kick out of it. Well, anyway,
that's funny.
People were watching the video. I never said a word. I'm just
is he going to say something?
Yeah.
What's he going to say?
Well, I've done 2 or 3 like that, and I've had people actually message me, and they're trying to imagine what I sound like, and I get kind of tickled. And I hear when they think of me speaking, they're hearing Sam Elliott.
Yes, exactly.
He's an actor, and I never say anything one way or the other. But there may be a few people out there listening to you today that are hearing my voice for the very first time and have been following me for years. So I'm thinking I might get some comments on it. Uh, I told someone one time, I said, well, I said, I'm not, my voice, it's not Sam Elliott, it's Truman Capote. and and of course, I'm somewhere in between, I hope. I don't, but yeah, that's been a funny thing. And I'm thinking about doing a video about the book when it launches. I haven't decided yet. Uh, I really want people to buy the book, and because I want them to read it, and yet I don't want to transition from what I've been to my followers to somebody that's just always hawking his book. I'm hoping that people will read it and like it and do that for me. When I did my website, if you've looked at my website, I assure you, I'm not the one that wrote all of that stuff. That Miss Hillary, I told her, I said, I just, it's just not in me to say what probably needs to be said. It's going to have to come from someone else, and she's just been great. So she was the one that got my website up. She hired a great man to do the work, a great company, and she stayed on him. She demands the best, and she's not bashful at all about disagreeing with you, and just such an expert in her field, and made sure everybody did a good job. I'm indebted to her. She's just been great.
Mr. Charles, so someone convinced you to do the book. Talk about the process. Like, did you find Hillary? Did Hillary find you?
Well, Mr. Philip Reed knew Miss Hillary from Facebook, and he got in touch with her, and he told me he was going to do it. He said, you have to write a book. And so I get a message on LinkedIn from him introducing me to Miss Hillary. And then we ended up setting up a phone call, and that's how it all started. And she took all of the material, and it's an interesting process that I had no idea what it was really like, the difficulty in turning your writing into a book. And I tell Miss Hillary all the time, I said, I just wrote the stuff. You're the one that's made it a book. And there's a lot to it for it to be good. And she's just a master at what she's doing.
And so the writing process, I'm guessing you wrote everything in the book, correct, yourself? There's no ghostwriting, everything's from you, right?
No, it's all me. Uh-huh.
And like, how did you decide, like, what to put in, what to take out in that process? Did Hillary help you with that, or?
Oh, yes, she was a big help. Essentially, things that I had posted on LinkedIn became the basis of the book. And she went through all of that material and called out what she thought would accomplish the vision that I had for the book and what I wanted to do. So a lot of my writings were not included in the book, but and then we would tweak them around, and I would edit them, maybe add some things here or there, but it was all my writing, and it was just the process of taking the writing and turning it into a good book.
Mr. Charles, what was your vision for the book? What was your intent in writing the book? What did you want people to get out of it?
I wanted to write something that was based on eternal principles that would cause people to stop and think before they act, and I said it in the context of personal life stories that I had written, so people could see that, you know, I've had my difficult times in life, just like everybody else. I'm not some guru that's been sitting in a monastery all my life. I've been out there, and I summed the book up with what I called the 4 golden questions, and that seems to have really resonated with people. And I explained that all day long, every day in our lives, there are 4 constants that are playing out almost moment by moment. And those 4 things are things that we do, things that we say, but then it goes a little deeper. And the third one is things that we think and things that we feel. We're doing, saying, thinking, and feeling stuff all day long. And I don't think folks have actually stopped to think about it that way. And all I did was suggest that before you act, stop and give it some thought, maybe just a second or two, but stop and think. Am I about to do something stupid? Should I do this? Should I not do it? Or maybe not do anything at all. And the same thing was true with what you say. Stop for a second before you just blurt something out and ask yourself the question. These were the questions. What would a wise person do? What would a wise person say? What would a wise person feel? And what would they think? And I pointed out, you can get control. You can take control of your life. You can control what you allow to be captured by your mind. Is what you're dwelling on something? It's making you unhappy or frustrated or whatever. And then what's in your heart? Do you have peace? Do you have peace of mind and peace in your heart? And if you don't, why? And it's a method of self-evaluation and a method of living your life. And the book is essentially based on illustrations, more or less, about those 4, about living according to the dictates of those questions.
Mr. Charles, is a book is it like through a traditional book publisher, or is it strictly through Amazon?
It will be published through Amazon. And that was something else I didn't understand until I got into this. The realities of the book world today, that's where you if you're an unpublished author, which I am, I'd never written it, published anything before. That's where you have to start. And if the book goes well, I don't know where it'll end up, but right now, to get that book into the hands of people that I wanted, that I know and love and want to read it, that's where we had to go. So that's where it'll be for the time being.
Mr. Charles, can you talk some about the pros and cons of writing your own book and lessons you learned through the process?
Yes, sir. It forces you to get focused and organized, and to communicate a message. And I learned that in the initial writing of things, it was best to go back and not try to add to it, but take stuff out that really didn't need to be said, and to try to speak in a language that people understand. I felt like that was a challenge, to just just write like I would be talking to people, and not try to impress them with anything other than the message of the book. It's been an educational experience into a world that I've never been in, and time will see how successful I've been.
Mr. Charles, so what does your wife, family, kids, and close friends think about all this you got going on? You're writing a book. You're like a quote unquote LinkedIn celebrity, so to speak. You know, all this fame you have going on. What are all those your close people closest to you think about all this that you doing?
Well, they're very excited, and my first reviews are starting to come in from my family. My son has read the book, and my daughter and son-in-law and the kids are reading it. And there seems to, they seem kind of, in a way, shocked by it all. It's like they saw a side of me that they really didn't see quite like it came out in the book. They learned things about my past that they didn't know, and it's just been fun to listen to their comments. But the message got through, and has had an impact on the way that they've started thinking about things. And my daughter told me, said, "Dad, I've been listening to you say this stuff for years," and she said, "It just never." Until I read this, it just never hit me what you were trying to say until you put it all together. I have little sayings that they tease me about. They call it Grandpa sayings. A lot of it goes into the book is Texas grit. Well, to my family, those are Grandpa sayings, and they've always been amused. But all of a sudden it started taking on a kind of a different meaning, that there was a little touch of wisdom there, perhaps. But they've been extremely supportive, and I think they're kind of proud of the old man, that he's retired, and we thought he was just going to go out to pasture, and now here he is writing books and still in the game, and I think they're pleased.
So, Mr. Charles, like you're in your 70s, like you're still making contributions to society, you're still adding value, helping people out, making the world a better place. Other people in their 20s, they're like doing nothing, right? Why do some people like you keep on giving value, keep on giving back, and like you still seem like you still have a focus, a fire for life?
Yes, sir.
Why
yes,
are some
sir.
people still have focus and fire at your age, and the other people like they're like in the 20s and 30s, so it's like work 9 to 5 and go home, and that's it, right? Is it just where you brought up, genetics? You're talking about that a little bit.
I think that since I was a child, and I don't mean to say this to be self-serving, but all of my life people have told me, and I don't know whether it was a compliment or not sometimes, but they would tell me that my mind didn't work like most people's, that I just saw things differently and looked at things differently. And I so much, and I'll touch on this, so much goes back to when I was in the Marine Corps. And I felt like that I owed some people a life. And I mean, I was alive, and there was something in me that wanted to make it a good one, and I didn't always understand exactly what that meant, but I wanted to accomplish something. I wanted to be someone that as I said, you start a business and you create a job for somebody. That's a neat thing. I'm taking care of my own family, and now I've created something that's helping another person support their family. And I always felt like that work was service to your fellow man, and that money was basically came to you on the basis of the value of your service. And so I wanted to be in some kind of a position in my life where people counted on me to do something and get it right. I had that feeling. And when you're dealing with underground gas lines and petroleum lines, electric lines, and different things, there's safety issues there. And I felt a great sense of responsibility to do a good job for the sake of my clients and for the sake of the people on the dozers and backhoes out there that were going to be digging the holes. And I got a lot of satisfaction out of that. And once I retired, I sat around for about 2 or 3 months, and I was just retired. And I started feeling just kind of worthless, like some old horse, that had just been, the gate was open, and I had been slapped on the butt and run off into the pasture, and I was just out there eating grass and sleeping. And I didn't like that feeling, and I got some satisfaction out of doing posts on LinkedIn, but I went back to my son's company, Lightspeed Locating, and I said, I'm not really looking for a job, but I want something to do where I feel like I'm, pulling my weight here for the air I'm breathing. And so I started doing some things with him. And then once the book came along, all of a sudden I was a new man. I was back in the game and doing something that I thought might be a legacy thing that would follow me beyond my years. And I like to think of it that way and hope that it will be. But I'm just I'm not one of these people that always has to have something to do. I think that becomes a distraction in and of itself. I'm an easygoing guy, but when I work, and always took a lot of satisfaction in doing a job well done. And I like the feeling of a satisfied customer. That meant a lot to me.
So, Mr. Charles, you've been getting a lot of positive reviews, a lot of positive comments on the art for your book cover, right?
Yes,
and I
sir.
believe that was actually done by a young lady out of Paris, France. How is it that a young lady from Paris, France, did the cover art for a book from a Texan? Like, how did that come about?
Oh, okay. Well, the lady that published my book is Miss Hillary, and she's from Minnesota. And we've had a little fun with that. She's taught.
So you have.
Yeah. She's taught me some words that I've never heard of before in my life. And she said the word jinkies one day. Well, jinkies, and I jinkies, and I could tell by the context what she was saying. And I wrote her back and I said, I really like the word jinkies. That's a new word for me. So I'm going to start using that instead of shucks, and I talk about speaking Texan. And so in my book, and in my writings on LinkedIn, I would go Texan, and by that, I would just start writing exactly the way most of the people out there in the world I lived in talked, and just enjoyed it. But the to answer your question, Hillary knew people. I mean, as a publisher, she knew the best people to bring in on this. And one was an artist. The best artist that she knew, there's lots of good artists out there, but the best one that she knew, that she'd worked with and knew she could depend on, was Miss Jiminy over in Paris. The same thing is true with my marketing. Michelle Colt, just a wonderful lady, is the one that's going to be that is in charge of the marketing of this book, and she and Miss Hillary are my they're my bosses. They tell me what to do and what not to do. And then there's people like that do the website. Miss Hillary knew somebody that could do a great website. The formatting of the book, she got the best people that she knew to do the formatting. So she has done everything. She, to answer your question, everybody involved in making this a book has been from the sources of Miss Hillary Jastrom. She's just a peach of a lady.
And the lady from Paris, I'm guessing y'all have never met in person, right?
No, we haven't.
I mean, that cover art, it's like point on. It's like, okay, it's like just so perfect how she did it. It's just amazing to me.
Well, I gave my basic vision of what I wanted to Miss Hillary, and bounced it off of her. I was open, you know, if she thought what I was thinking was ridiculous, or you know, we were having a conversation, but she loved the idea. I said, I want a picture of me sitting in the rocking chair with a bunch of critters around me and my cookie bandits. And in the picture, I've got a little bear cub laying on his back in my lap, and he's getting his belly rub. And we even, so we gave the vision to Miss Gemini, and she started coming up with drawings, and we started tweaking them around and moving them around and adding this and that. And but she was into it, and just came up with something that I think is just absolutely perfect for what I had wanted the book to look like. I wanted it to be something that would catch people's attention and make them smile, and be a little, and be different than most book covers that you would see. And she just did a masterful job.
Yeah, she definitely did. Like, you know, I followed you for a while. I, you know, listening to your article, I mean, read your articles, and like I saw that, like, man, this is like point on. Like, this is like you said, it's perfect. Like, I think it captures your essence, and essence everything you're trying to do. She did a great job.
Yes, yeah, it was. And we'd get drawings from her, and they were just kind of sketched out that you could see. And then when she was ready to really go in there and get the finished product, she just fleshed it all out and finished it up. And one of the things that I like is Harry, the Bigfoot. He's in the picture, and the more you look at the picture, when you see it the size that it'll be on the book, you'll just keep noticing things that you didn't notice the last time you looked. And I thought that would be part of the fun of it as well. So there's a lot of critters in there.
It is. So, Mr. Charles, I think another great thing about you. So there's a lot of people that are 50s, 60s, 70s that have the mindset, I know everything. I'm not going to change my mind. I can change my opinion. But you're like open to different ideas, open to learning new things. Why are some people so set in their ways and don't want to change? And like some people like you are like really like learn all the time and do better, so to speak.
Well, they don't understand the value of having people around you that are smarter than you are, and who know things that you don't know. Now, I was able to put together what became the content of a book, but had no idea in this world how to turn that into a book. But there's people out there that do, and I found the very best one. And this is what I tease Miss Hillary. This is my favorite Hillary story. I was looking at one of the articles and we were talking on the phone, and I had made a note that I thought the first two paragraphs of the story should be taken out of that story. I didn't think they fit, and I explained to her what the way I felt, and she's listening patiently to me, and I had no idea what was about to come. And so I after I finished talking, this firm voice came back over the phone and said, "I could not disagree with you more." And I knew right then I had a gem. I mean, she knows what she's doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And when I realized that I had that kind of a lady doing this work that would stand up to me, and maybe a foolish idea that I would have, I knew that I had a treasure. I love people like that they make me better because they know things I don't know, and they can do things that I can't do. And so my recommendation to anybody is know your strengths and know your weaknesses, fess up to them and understand them. And where you're weak, find people who are strong. And that's the way you really get things done. And I've never had any, I don't consider myself to be, I think I'm a person of average intelligence, I guess. I'm not a genius, but I have sense enough to know that there are people that can help in areas where I need help, and I cherish them. They're my favorite people. People that'll stand up to me and and take charge. And that was the moment I realized that Miss Hillary was just exactly what I needed. She's been great.
So, Mr. Charles, next, let's talk about your role as president for life of the Republic of Road Mountain and the Critter Council, and talk about how Thelma the doe-eyed matriarch's helping you out, and all the rest of your critters are helping you out with your daily life, and how those characters came to life and how they came about.
Well, they're critters that live on Round Mountain. And the story is kind of circulated around that that I've never confirmed or denied, and have no intention of doing so now, that all of the critters were from the tales of Uncle Remus. And that it's even been said that I'm the little boy that used to go and listen to these stories. And that is just something that needs to remain. Like I say, I won't confirm or deny that. But I loved seeing all of the animals up on Round Mountain. And Thelma, they all just sort of, in my mind, I just developed characters around them. And I saw this beautiful doe that was standing looking right at me. And I have no idea why I decided to call her Thelma, but it was the first thing that went through my mind. And I made Thelma the matriarch of Round Mountain and the enforcer of the Round Mountain Critter Code of Conduct and co-chair of the Round Mountain Critter Council meetings every Saturday morning. And then there was Spuds, a wild boar, and Rex, a coyote, and Mittens, a bobcat, and these different critters. And some of the things, I got ideas, and I just started talking about it. And of course, everybody realizes that these are just stories. But all the critters come down to Round Mountain every morning, and I give them all a belly rub, and then they go and get their about their day's activities. And when we started thinking more in terms of a structured government, all of the critters, of course, wanted me to be the leader. They chose me as their leader, with Thelma second in charge, and they elected me president for life of the Republic of Round Mountain. Round Mountain seceded from Texas over disagreements about the way the coronavirus was being handled, and we became our own independent republic with me president for life. And then we started thinking about our national defense, and we formed the Round Mountain Critter Defense Force. And Spuds, and every critter from fire ants to buzzards had a certain role that they would play if there were hostilities and Round Mountain needed to be defended. And so the stories, I've told a lot of stories to my grandkids when they were little. We'd sit around the campfire, and I'd tell tall tales, and I just started telling tall tales to people on LinkedIn too, and it became a part of what I offered out there. And they seemed to really enjoy it. Every once in a while, somebody will message me and act like this is all true. I mean, I know it's not true. Everybody else knows it's not true, but it's fun to pretend that it is, and we all enjoy it.
I mean, play is good for everyone. Play is good for you at any age, right?
Right. I was walking in the woods with my grandkids one day, and there's a huge white oak tree, and this is just kind of the relationship that I have with them. And they were so young, and they just believe anything I said. I mean, they were so innocent, it was so sweet. And I told them that when Davy Crockett first came to Texas, he spent a couple of months at Round Mountain. And while he was there, he killed a coon out of this big white oak tree and made the hat that he wore at the Alamo. And they were just like, wow, Grandpa. And then I involved, the coon's name was Roscoe, and he was the descendant many times removed of a coon that lives on Round Mountain now named Rocco. So Rocco is a direct descendant of Roscoe, and Roscoe literally sacrificed his life so that Davy could look good and have a good hat when he got to the Alamo. And that's one of the Round Mountain stories as well. There's a bunch of them. I haven't told them all, but I just kind of stumbled into it talking about my critters and thought I would have some fun and spin some yarns about it, as I want to do. I've been a storyteller all my life, and it hasn't changed.
No, it'd be great. It'd be great. Like, your book has great success, and someone turns you and your critter council like some kind of animated cartoon series, right? Like every week, the adventures of Mr. Charles and his critters like going around Round Mountain. I think that'd be a great TV cartoon series or animated series to do.
It certainly could be. And Miss Hillary and I have talked about a children's book with I don't know if I would be in it or not. Maybe yes, maybe no. But my first vision about it would be for all of the critters, Thelma and Spuds and all of the critters would be babies. Thelma would be a little doe and Spuds a little piglet. And it would be much the same lessons as in Ponder on It Pilgrims, that some of the little critters were good little critters and some of them were naughty, and how life, the results of their behavior on the way that their life went for basic happiness, and try to work in some moral to the story, that it's always better to be kind and nice than to be mean, and contrast the characters like that. There might be something coming on that. It'll be later, but it's being thought about.
So, Mr. Charles, of course you have like hundreds of quotes, right? I want to read them right here. Look here, boys and girls, you can't keep negative, toxic, angry, offensive, or insulting people out of your life, but you can keep them out of your head. I mean, that's just so insightful, right? Can you talk about some more about that? I think a lot of people need to hear about it, because a lot of people get down with negativity. People talking bad about them. Like you said, it's up to you to keep them out of your head, correct?
That's the point I was making earlier. If are those people in your head, you might even get them away from you, but you think about things they said. You start thinking about things you want to say to them, and all of a sudden, your mind's just poisoned by the influence that these people have had on the way that you think, and catch yourself and don't let those type of people have control over you.
So, Mr. Charles, you take a lot of pictures with cigars. So I'm guessing you're a lover of cigars. Do you have a favorite cigar that you smoke, and how long have you been smoking cigars?
This is another myth that has grown up around me that I haven't discouraged. I do enjoy a good cigar. I like the right now the Rocky Patel brands of cigars, the 1990 vintage, and they're really good. But I probably smoke one or two cigars a year.
Okay,
and
so not,
when
not like every day, like a picture making scene.
No, it's just I'll take some pictures of myself when I'm doing it. I'm not a big smoker, and it's the same thing with drinking. Everybody wonders what's in my coffee cup, and I haven't discouraged the idea that I've been known to sit there on the porch and have a snort of Jack Daniels, and that's true, but not often. I'll have a drink. I enjoy a drink with a meal sometimes, but I'm a man of self-control. I don't let things capture me, and if I got to liking cigars too well and felt like I was smoking too many of them, I'd quit them altogether. And it's the same way with having a drink. Just in moderation, but I've enjoyed the good fun that we've had, and it is true. I'm a man that likes a good cigar. Yes, sir.
I remember one time I was on the TV show Dallas for J.R. Ewing. He was somewhere early morning, and they asked him, "J.R., you want some coffee?" He said, "Yes." "What do you want in your coffee?" "You like bourbon?"
Yeah.
I always thought that was so funny, right?
Yeah. I know people that have had a real problem with alcohol, and it. I'm very moderate in any of my vices, what I would consider to be my vices, and I think that's best. But then they say everything in moderation, including moderation. So I'm still pondering on that.
So, Mr. Charles, you live in the Houston area, correct?
Yes, sir.
And can you talk something about what's it like living in Texas? What's the Texas life is right now?
Well, I think there's something in the DNA of Texans. We were once an independent nation, and there's a certain pride to that. And Texans tend to be independent and freedom loving, and sort of a free spirit about them in living life. And it's more, we say, a state of mind. Anybody, it's like becoming an American. You can come from another country to the United States, and you can become an American if you embrace the culture and come to think of this as your country. And someone comes to Texas, they can become a Texan. We just don't want you telling us how y'all used to do it back up in Michigan. You know,
Exactly.
leave Michigan behind and come down here and get you a hat and some boots. So and
get you a Lone Star, get you a Lone Star beer, right. Eat some Bluebell ice cream, get some barbecue.
Right. Learn the language. You know, first thing you need to know is what fetch means, and we have fun, and people they're somewhat surprised that we still call them Yankees.
Yeah.
But if a Texan likes you, he'll tease you. And if you come down here from Michigan or Pennsylvania or New York, and you're a good person, you'll be embraced. You're going to get teased a little bit, but you'll be embraced and accepted, as long as there's a sense that you're happy here and you're glad to be here. That's pretty much it, I think. It's just it's a spirit that goes back to the early days and the way our history formed. And there's a lot of folks that can trace their ancestry right back to the old Austin colonies, land grants. And you see people with signs on their truck that they're native Texans. And I always laugh because Davy Crockett and Stephen F. Austin and Jim Bowie and William Travis, all these people, none of them were native Texans.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But it's I'm proud to be a Texan, and it seems like people like Texas. I have friends in Europe, and they find out. They just think it's neat that I'm from Texas. They see the movies and they hear stories and stuff, and they think it's and it is. It's a special place. We have our own culture here, and we are like a foreign country. And if you come in here and understand, we're a part of the United States, but we're different here. And the difference is we think of ourselves as Texans. And you ask me, I mean, I'm a Texan. And that, I guess that's the difference maybe in us and some other places, but other people love where they live too.
Yeah.
I
So me
know
and my
that's
wife, we're both born and raised in Texas. Right now, we live in the Seattle area because I retired up here. Like,
uh-huh.
if you go back to Texas, just the vibe, the people, like most places I've been to, like I travel a lot around the world. You know, in the army, you go like
Right.
you go to a grocery store, leave a grocery store, they look at you like you're crazy. In Texas, like in Texas, you go to HEB, how you doing today, sir? You leave, how you doing? Hope you have a great day. Just like the mannerisms, the sociability, it's just a total different vibe, different outlook on
We
life in Texas.
People are nice to each other, uh, and show respect for each other, and defer to one another in lines, and uh, that uh, I know that's not true in some places. And folks that are coming in, a lot of good people coming to Texas, and we want them to come here in the spirit of the old immigrants because they're looking for a better life, or they're looking for more freedom. They've become discontent with where they are, and we want you to become one of us, and embrace us, and not bring all the things that was wrong with where you came from. Leave that stuff behind. We don't want we don't want Texas diluted by that. We want you to come and join us and be become like us.
One time we was visiting my brother-in-law in Dallas, right? And a good friend of mine was happening to area. So he was out from, he's like, not in, I think he's from New Hampshire, I think, right? She came to visit us in Dallas. He was like, why is everyone always waving at us? So I had to explain to him, like, it's just a Texas thing. Like people come by, they wave at you, I say hi. It's like totally foreign to him. Like everyone's
Yes,
waving at us.
yeah, yeah. It's that way, especially in the country. I mean, you meet another vehicle, and you throw up your hand, and they'll do the same thing, and you don't have any idea who it is, but it's just a courtesy that you show a driver that's going the opposite direction that you are.
Yes.
And people are good to let you in, and when traffic's heavy, and uh, uh, just kind of a common courtesy. People are nice, uh,
Yes.
and I'm proud of that. It's a good thing.
So a few years ago, my kids bought me a T-shirt. It said, "Never ask a man if he's from Texas. If you're from Texas, he would already told you. If
Yeah,
he's not, if he's not, you're gonna embarrass him by asking him."
yeah, yeah. That's we have a reputation of being tellers of tall tales, and we came by it honestly. We're a teller of tales at a proud people, and that we are.
So,
And yes, sir.
no, go ahead.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. So, Mr. Charles, you already talked about your book some, but can you go like in greater detail, like how the book got started, what you want the book to accomplish, and what's your vision for the book?
I I'm thinking. I I'm dreaming big. Uh, when I think about this book, I think about the message of the book, and I feel like it's an important message, and I've been encouraged by what other people have said that it is that there's something unique about this and the way that it's written, and I feel like the world would be a better place if millions of people read this book. And when I say that to people who are familiar with the material, they they feel the same way. Now, what success it will ultimately have remains to be seen. But it's almost become like a ministry to me, that I have something that I just want to tell you, that might help you in being a better decision maker and being a better person. and so many people have just seemed to have lost complete control of their lives. And it's a call for calm and 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 thoughtful consideration of what's important in life, and taking a fresh look with new eyes at the way your life is going, and the way you would like for it to go. Uh, Now, there's a certain reality to it, about, selling. If 4 million people read the book, there's going to be a whole bunch of people buy the book. But I was putting this material more or less on LinkedIn for years, and I was just happy to share my thoughts. And now it's turned into a book, and people will have to buy it. But I've never lost sight of the message, and the importance that I feel about people reading what's said there. That's so I want the book to have great success, because I love it when people, if it's helped somebody, that'll be, if it'll change somebody's life. And I'm hearing that people have read it and said, this has just turned my whole world upside down. I mean, I just never thought about things the way you're presenting them here. So we'll see what happens. But I'm going to do my best to get the word out about it, and hope people will respond.
Mr. Charles, obviously you want millions of people to buy the book, but is your book targeted like one certain type of people, like one demographic? Like maybe are you trying to target like, single mothers who are struggling? Maybe someone who's like a CEO of a successful corporation, but he's not appreciative of life. Is a certain type of background or demographic that you think your book speaks most to, or this is just a great book for people in general?
There's no target audience whatsoever. We're all just folks. We all have different roles that we play, and the CEO of a major corporation has great responsibility and in his work, but he's just a man or a woman like everybody else, and the people that all the way down, the people that work for him, young people, middle-aged people. It's just a call for all of us to stop and think, and maybe become better people, maybe learn how to be better people. These things aren't being taught in our schools anymore. We're not being taught manners. We're not being taught social grace. We're not being taught to be nice and courteous. Everybody seems angry now and upset about something, and that's not by accident. And this is a call to everyone, whether they're teenagers or people my age, and people of different ages have read it, and it's I feel like if you're the owner of a big business, would your business benefit if your employees made better decisions, were better people, and lived a more of a disciplined life, and it's something that will affect everyone. But I didn't have any particular group in mind at all. I was just picturing maybe a scene I saw on television where everybody's just screaming and yelling and seems just completely out of control and angry. And one group believes one thing on one side of the street, people on the other believe just the opposite, but everybody was yelling and screaming and shouting obscenities to one another. And my thought is, look, folks, there's a better way. This is not going to accomplish anything. So To answer your question, I feel like I'm talking like so much, but I think anyone that reads it will come away with something that will be helpful to them, and will make them think of someone else that they wish would read the book, and that's what I'm hoping, that it'll just get a groundswell of people recommending it, and go on from there.
Mr. Charles, so once a book starts selling like hotcakes, is it plan to do like a U.S. book tour with you, the Critical Council, and the missus, like a U.S. book tour?
I have no plans for that right now. My life is changing. I mean, I have a gentleman invite me to be on a podcast. I've done one podcast. You're my second, and I have 3 more scheduled. And this is all something that's just come up.
And the next thing you know, you're on Good Morning America.
Well, I don't know. I want to do a balance between the promotion of the book and staying who I am.
Yeah, I mean, you're still a father, you're still a husband, you're still a grandkid. You know,
and they're still the most important things.
I mean, you're still a grandparent. I mean,
yeah, and that's, but sure. I mean, if I don't know that I would go on a national book tour. That sounds, I don't know if I'd want to be gone that long, but I'm going to be available for podcasts. And if someone with a radio show called up and wanted me to be on the radio show with them, I'd do that. And if somebody, I might do some TV appearances if that happened. But that seems, this is all new to me. I've just been this guy up at Round Mountain, that came back and wrote something on LinkedIn once in a while. I enjoy the life and the lifestyle that I have, and I'm not gonna let it change that. But I'll do within reason what's in the best interest of the book. I really do want it to do well.
Mr. Charles, is there anything that I should have asked you that I haven't asked you yet, or anything else you want to talk about?
No, sir. It's been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I can't think of anything that I would say. If you read the book and you like it, I'd appreciate you writing a review on Amazon and telling people about it, and being a part of what I call a movement to restore wisdom and common sense in our country. That's the objective. And if people want to be a part of that, I'm honored by the kind things that people say. I was told that reviews, people looking at the book and being able to see what some other people thought about it that had read it, was important. So that might be the only thing I'd have to ask anyone that's listening, and that I would add.
And to our listeners, we'll have the links to Mr. Charles' social media, his LinkedIn and his Facebook, and link to his buys and LinkedIn, and the link to buy his book on Amazon at the show notes. You can find the show notes at www.cavernetchalkblog.com. Be sure to share this episode with your friends and network, and be sure to rate, subscribe, and review the Jason Cavendish Experience on your favorite platform. So, Mr. Charles, before we get out of here, can you give us any last-minute wisdom or advice on anything you want to talk about?
Well, everybody just calm down, quit worrying about things that you can't do anything about, and just focus on being a good person, being good people. And that really is my message, to seek to be wise, to seek to make good decisions, that be able to give people good advice, and improve yourself. and stop worrying about everything else. That's the best advice I can give people, I think, in a nutshell.
Mr. Charles, I want to thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
I've had a great time. I appreciate the invitation, sir.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. And remember to be great every